everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, and this is Big Baby Reviews. Check out my comics, Big Baby and STARCRASHER, at KINGCOMICS.CA. Today, guys, it is Joe Quesada Day, so we're taking a look at Ash number 6. This is December 1995. Once again, we've got a wraparound cover. We're taking a look at some extreme foreshortened artwork from Joe Quesada. Really good stuff here, very dynamic. Lots of cool shadows, every kind of Quesada art trick on display here on the cover. Some big gritted teeth, some big scary eyes, and the two characters that are going to be squaring off in this issue. Also the background, right? If you really pay attention, a lot of detail, a lot of attention paid to that background. Unfortunately, the fact that they blurred it out a little bit, not that I'm against that. I get it. It helps separate foreground from background, right? The sharper stuff in the front and the slightly blurrier stuff in the back. I just feel like maybe the blur was a little too strong, could have been pulled back a little bit so we can appreciate a little bit more of that architectural detail that Quesada is so good at, because clearly this is taking place inside of some sort of cathedral or church or something. And I would have liked that artwork to just be not quite as blurry as it is, but pretty cool cover overall. And we're going to have a look inside now. So story and pencils, Joe Quesada. Story and inks, Jimmy Palmiotti. Colors, Ruben Rude. Letters, Chris Eliopoulos. And that's where we're going to stop. I don't know exactly what he's going for here. So clearly what we have here is a drag queen, or what we used to call a drag queen. I guess today we'd call them a trans woman or trans man. Not quite sure on that. Call it whatever you will. I don't want to insult anyone particularly. To each his own. People can do what they want. But yeah, I think the shock factor was what Quesada was going for here, at least in 1995, of a man dressed up as a woman, with the stubble and stuff, trying to maybe, be a little bit gruesome with it, in the sense that, it should be somewhat of a shocking image to start off with in a comic book as a splash page. Not that it has much bearing on the story, but yeah, I guess that's what he was going for, I think, personally, for shock value. And what we find out is that basically we've got the whole bunch of Ash's friends, right, going to this club dancing, I guess, and trying to get into the club, and that's the doorman who decides if they come in or not. Now, a few things I want to mention about this issue. We're going to get a little bit more of these decorative kind of flourishes that I talked about last review, that it seems like Quesada's throwing in more and more, and eventually it's going to really use a lot in the Daredevil series that he's going to be on a little bit later from Marvel Knights. The kind of introductory image here with the title, which he did last issue, he's doing again. These images really don't relate specifically to the story in any way or to the plot. They're just kind of cool images that are there to look cool. And then you've got, the Cupids down here all the way throughout, I guess, highlighting that we're with the girl that Ashley has a crush on, and he's going to be supposed to be meeting up with her at this club anyways. I guess that's why the Cupids are thrown in there, right? I guess relates to the story a little bit, somewhat. And we got a great example, once again, of Quesada's mastery of architecture and drawing architecture, whether this is photo referenced or not. Just a really awesome job on this stuff, and he does take the time to detail it properly. And I'll tell you, this probably took quite a few hours to get all that done. The thing I want to kind of talk about art-wise, again, the last thing I want to mention before we move on from these pages here, is it feels like there's a bit of a disconnect in the art in this issue, in that, it's almost like Quesada's gone even more cartoony with the characters here, which I don't hate, which is fine by me, right? And as we go through their depictions in the book, we'll notice that. But then there's characters here and there, like this gentleman here that we see again here, and this gentleman down here, that feel photo reference, that really create a disconnect in the art between kind of the imagined cartoony stuff that he comes up with and the photo reference stuff. I've mentioned this before. It always bothers me and creates that sense of disconnect between some of the art and the characters within the Ash issues. I don't know why he's doing that exactly. I feel like once we get to Daredevil, he's going to stop doing more of the photo reference stuff. But I always guessed that he was incorporating people that he knows into the story. So I feel like this is probably someone that he knows. And we'll have more of that in this issue. That's why I mention it. So again, I've talked about how these pages tend to be quite wordy, right? So not that interesting to read. But the layout's always interesting. Here he is, I believe, talking to his mom, right? And just some great stuff going on in the background, right? He's getting dressed, but here in the background, let me start that again. He's getting dressed in the background here, and he's got, the foreground element of the cats here eating with food kind of flying around. There's something about this that I like in the sequence on this page. Just getting a little insight into the cat world and all these sound effects and stuff of them eating like animals, basically, which makes sense. Geek Squad, I guess, was starting to become popular around 1995, or maybe he knows someone who's starting up that company or worked there. So he tends to incorporate a lot of the stuff into his artwork, things from real life. Past few issues, we saw the Spawn logo on Ashley's shirt. So here we are back at the club, and another example here of something that annoys me is the photo reference stuff mixed in with the cartoony kind of art, right? So I feel like I could be wrong here. This is either someone he knows, or more specifically even Jimmy Palmiotti, or his interpretation of him here, and he's using photo reference for that. And then the character here, who's kind of some sort of mob boss or something, he's got a hat on and can't quite see his eyes, but I feel like this is Joe Quesada. I can't be 100% sure. So it's either him or, again, someone that he knows, but just the photo reference stuff. These guys here, right? Probably people that he knows and is working into the comic, but there's a disconnect between the photo reference stuff and the cartoony stuff that just really annoys me. Especially like when you get them in the same panel here, like this character, as opposed to these guys here, the muscle right behind this mob guy or some sort of crime boss or something. Kind of an interesting look for a crime boss as well, right? Not the typical thing we'd go for, so maybe a little bit more original and different than what we're used to. But yeah, I've talked about how, he doesn't cheap out. He's got a lot of panels on the page, but maybe there's sometimes too much of a good thing, right? Like the Image guys have been criticized for doing 1, 2, 3 panels per page, but Quesada, I think, is almost overcompensating in a way and doing the opposite. So like, especially on these 2 pages, I feel like it's just a bit of an overload. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I mean, that's not, extreme, but there's just something about the layouts that feels a little too busy. Just a lot of stuff on the page. Again, with this whole series, I've talked about the colors and the layouts and stuff. I would just say the art is great, but overall feels just a little too busy and can get slightly confusing. So again, just this very cartoony style that he's applying to, the main characters that we know, Ashley, this girl he's interested in, and then the photorealistic stuff just doesn't jive together with me. And as this mob boss kind of, grabs her by the arm here and somewhat menacingly is asking her to dance with him, we get our antagonist who pops in, boom. And of course, Ashley knows that there's an issue going on, so he's racing to the scene, right? And he's going to introduce himself as he's transformed into, Ashley has transformed into Ash. It's pretty interesting. This is basically a double page spread, right? This image of Ash breaking into the cathedral, and then we've got the insert panels on top. So it almost acts like a regular page overlapping the double page splash, right? Interesting design work, like I said, throughout the issue, just sometimes feels kind of busy. Strangely enough, to me, these 2 pages don't feel as busy as the ones we saw before. Very dynamic, lots going on. The colors, unfortunately, is once again not enough contrast for my taste. I feel like the colors don't separate foreground, middle ground, background enough, or as well as they should. Maybe other than in this panel here, it works. Why? Because you got like a monochrome for the background, which really helps to separate everything, where everywhere else, it's just very kind of, what's in the foreground, what's in the background. You really got to pay attention to break it down visually. So yeah, we got an interesting sequence, like I said, of Ash and this guy kind of facing off, but all the intercutting with the other stuff just, again, makes it a little too busy for me and a little too confusing as I go through the book. And kind of, I feel like these extra bits here are kind of obscuring the stuff I want to see on the action panels, right? So it kind of annoys me. You got a stat here that he used over and over. She's kind of just frozen, right? She's not quite sure what's going on. Her friend here, who to me looks kind of like Jubilee, is here to help her out a bit. More of that architectural stuff that Quesada throws in that he's really good at. And as the conflict escalates, I'm not sure, I feel like it starts on this page, but I'll talk about it more when we flip past this Kevin Nolan thing. But it feels like the last few pages of this book, there's something maybe that happened in the scanning. It wasn't quite exactly at the sharpness that it should have been. Maybe not so obvious on this page, but I'll point it out when we get past this section here. Now, this to me is a bad idea. Okay, you're presenting a poster drawn by Kevin Nolan, And, you know, you've got panels and, you know, the regular story and dialogue and stuff. And then you've got, you know, different sections, almost panels, and again, some dialogue. So it's like, I was almost real quick led to continue reading here and then realize, okay, no, obviously this is something else. But I just feel like design wise, graphically, you should, if you're going to do something like this, that you're basically introducing Kevin Nolan and a bit of his history, do it in text or whatever. You know what I mean? Already, if these weren't phylacteries and word balloons and just maybe narration boxes or just a text, you would clearly right away know that this is different and separate from the story. But real quick, you're almost kind of led into it and then, wait a minute, this is not part of the story, right? And yeah, basically just introducing Kevin Nolan, his history, and this pretty cool illustration that he did of Ash and his own character who's called Terra Firma Irma. As I said, you know, it was quite a fad back then that when guest artists came in to do posters of, you know, specific characters in those books, they would include their own characters with the characters. So it happens a little bit in Savage Dragon, some of those posters by different artists, and then it happens here in Ash as well. So you're depicting Ash, but also your own create your own character. So a little bit of marketing for yourself as well, which makes sense. Ash Zero, they're advertising here. So again, next Joe Quesada review, I'll be taking a look at that. And yeah, so here I feel is where the printing difference is much more apparent. There's just something where the line gets a little blurrier and rougher. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but yeah, it almost feels like, you know, it wasn't scanned at the same DPI or something, or there's not quite the sharpness that we had on the other pages. And just kind of annoying because it changes the aesthetic visually. Like this one here, there's just, it's the worst of the whole book, right? There's just something there. It's not the artwork itself. Artwork is great, but there's just something in, you know, the printing that happened that just is wrong and just looks a little out of focus. I'm not quite sure how to put my finger on it and how to say it, but that's what I feel here. And this was just kind of gruesome, and I kind of was kind of a fun thing, although I feel the reveal maybe should have been on the next page, right? Turning the page and seeing this, even though it's the last panel and you got these to read first. Seeing it right away kind of kills the surprise of it, and it would have been better on a page turn. But yeah, so our antagonist, you know, his eyes have been wrapped around since he's been introduced and hidden behind this blindfold, and then boom, we just get to see that he actually has no eyes. And, you know, he really exaggerated stuff here, more cartoony, the, you know, wide open mouth, the slobber, all that stuff. Definitely to me just makes this one of the coolest images in this issue, actually. And just kind of gruesome to see he's got no eyes and just kind of a dent where his eyes should be. Just, it's a little bit of a body horror, right? I enjoy it. So after that horrific revelation, the character falls off the spire, Ash as well, and just comes crashing down to the ground here. Here's 2 pages where I feel like, you know, I've talked about how wordy this book is and how much of a slodge it is to kind of get through each page. Here's a page where I feel there's just about the right amount of words, right? And they've done that thing as well, once again, where they do different colored lettering and narration boxes and stuff. I gotta say, in this issue, maybe they realized how badly they did it in the past. So yellow on purple here actually works really well. And we've got good contrast, so this stuff is easy to read. Although this type of font here, with the lowercase letters, just a little too small and just kind of annoying to read as well. Not contrast-wise, but size-wise. Just a few little things they could have done overall to improve the printing of the book. Here's another page that looks a little kind of out of focus to me and odd. And the lettering as well, that would have improved the book. So Ashley has turned back to Ashley, out of Ash, right? And then heads back home. Takes a look at the kind of cryogenic chamber, I guess is how I describe it. I don't know what else to call it. And he kind of hops in there, only to horrifically reveal that he's reverting back to that form where he's all burnt up. And, you know, 0 obviously leads to the next issue, which is issue 0. So next issue, what? You think we're just going to tell you? See you in 60. So all shall be revealed, hopefully, in the last issue of Ash that was ever published, and that we're going to be reviewing Ash number 0 on the next Joe Quesada Day. Anything of note here? Nothing specific that, you know, I want to be talking about. All right, well, there you go, guys. That is my review of Ash number 6 by Joe Quesada and Jimmy Palmiotti. If you are watching still the channel and you are subscribed, thank you so much. Really do appreciate all your support. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second for you. It really helps the channel out, helps us grow, and helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books just like we are. Speaking of comic books, I have my own Big Baby and STARCRASHER. Check those out at KINGCOMICS.CA. And, you know, if you're enjoying the channel, help me out a little bit. I'm trying to get some extra watch hours to hit the next milestone on YouTube and bring my channel to the next level. So any extra bit of views and extra videos that you haven't watched that you could check out would really help me out. So please do so if you're so inclined. Thanks again for watching, guys. Have yourselves an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13. 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents STARCRASHER one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Like! Subscribe!